the Nation magazine just announced that they hired 3 new columnists, one of whom is Adolph Reed.
That's awesome.
Whoa.
His first column for the Nation. You bring in Bhaskar Sankara to run your magazine, get a good thing start to happen. His first column for the Nation is just up today. It's called Race and Class: The Beginnings of an Argument. And he talks about kind of the origins of a certain kind of left intellectual identity politics in the 1970s. He's got this great line in here. However useful these notions must have seemed at the time, they didn't contribute much to our understanding of how racialist or gender ideologies and practices actually and concretely connect with capitalist black exploitation. Class exploitation, asserting, for example, that a black single mother downsized out of her steelworker job and facing eviction or foreclosure suffers from, quote, triple oppression, unquote, doesn't say anything about the sources of her circumstances or how she might understand them, much less what she might do to improve them. Which is just kind of, Adolph at his, at his rhetorical best there, making this point. Jason Miles from This Is Revolution and I did this meet and greet at the Rainbow Bar and Grill in Los Angeles, and we had and there was a conversation we had there about people who like starting meetings with land acknowledgments, and it's like this is such a weird Native Americans are statistically the lowest income ethnic group in the United States.
Yep.
I've got to imagine you do a poll. It's like, what are your priorities here? What are the things that you want? Right. It's like, how is like, I don't know, more money or healthcare or no. Mostly I want white people to ritually express their historical guilt. Like that's the biggest thing that's going to help me.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. It really is. And it's a way to provide cover for the ongoing system that really almost like celebrates inequality, right? Celebrates what we're seeing with all this concentration of wealth and power at the very top. And I'm just, look, I don't know, guys. It's a delicate thing to balance because is there racism, sexism, homophobia, and all that? Of course there is, right? And I don't ever want to minimize that. But at the same time, I do think that the mainstream Democratic Party has an interest in hyper-focusing on those issues and just offering platitudes and happy talk to avoid offering anything else. Yeah. And I'm just getting tired of it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know. I guess my feeling is that I don't really... you go back to the 1990s, Bill Clinton would famously say that he felt people's pain, right? And I don't, good question. I don't really want, I don't care very much actually about whether a politician feels my or anybody else's pain. I don't really care whether they're going to validate anybody's experience. I don't even really care very much whether they morally disapprove of all those things that, all those things that you just mentioned are bad, right? They're real and they're bad. But I don't know. I mean, I think what I'd like from government would be actually improving my or anybody else's life, right? I mean, I think I care more about that than I care about what they think about any of the rest of that stuff.
Also, I totally agree with you on that. And also, Richard Wolff makes this point often, and I think he's completely right. When people are struggling economically, when they're in desperate financial situations, and then they have the political elite point to various disenfranchised groups of people as the scapegoat, that's what creates the hatred in this country and the division in this country.
Totally.
During the same interview with Bernie Sanders on Face the Nation, I always mix up the names, Meet the Press, Face the Nation, same. Anyway, but on that show, apparently in his book, he writes that he does not believe that the majority of Trump voters are racists and bigots. Yeah. And so Margaret Brennan brought that up and she's like, you wrote this. Do you actually think that? And Bernie's like, yeah. And Bernie's like, look, are there some racists and bigots that voted for Trump? Yeah. But do I think that all of them are? No. And then he gave the example of Florida, which elected Obama twice. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, really? What happened? The demographics in Florida shifted so much that they went from electing a biracial, the country's first biracial president twice, to now all of a sudden they're all racist and they elected Trump. No, could it be that Trump, it was hollow and he didn't actually mean it, but he at least offered or paid lip service to the economic anxieties that people are facing, whereas every other politician, both on the Democrat side and the Republican side, just pretended like it doesn't exist, that everything's great. Obama was doing tours to brag about how much he improved the economy. I mean, it was absurd.
Yeah, well, in fact, in Florida, in the most recent presidential election, Trump won, but the $15 minimum wage ballot should have won by more than Trump did, which suggests that, if you actually wanted to appeal to people who voted for him, that like just mathematically that strongly suggests that there's at least some of those people who could be peeled off, by actually doing things like that. But yeah, it's amazing. I remember being really struck by this in the fall of 2021 when the McAuliffe-Youngkin election happened in Virginia. And it really seemed like for a lot of kind of left, online lefty kinds of spaces, the only acceptable explanation for that election was that everybody in Virginia was like horrifically racist. And it's like, okay, but like, if that's your explanation for why people vote, like that's your only explanation for why people vote for Republicans, then like Biden won Virginia the year before. I mean, was there a huge racism increase between 2020 and 2021, right? Or could it be that McAuliffe just had a horrible campaign? That's it's so bizarre that this is the only acceptable. This is the only acceptable explanation for any of this stuff. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's not that, lest nobody get it twisted. It's not that racism doesn't exist or isn't awful, right? It does and it is. But it's just the sort of, the hyper focus on validating people, in identity politics terms, the hyper focus on, what's going on in people's heads and morally disapproving of the voters, which is it's like I always think of the it's Bertolt Brecht after the uprising in East Berlin in 1953. He wrote this poem where he was talking about the party went around plastering posters saying that because of the uprising and the general strike, people would have to work twice as hard to earn back, their trust. And, he says, well, wouldn't it be simpler if the government simply dissolved the people and elected another? And it's like kind of the same point, because it's like, okay, but hold on. It's like, if your explanation for why you lose elections is the voters suck, like something has really gotten backwards here.
100%. And look, I think back at 2016 and I definitely cringe at a lot of the stuff I said. And it was because I existed in this bubble that was void of any real material or class analysis. You know what I'm saying? And once you're stuck in that news cycle, you just start seeing other Americans who might disagree with you politically as like your mortal enemy. And it's by design. That happens by design. And that's why, just like a broad statement or general statement about my conversation. Look, I went on Ben's show, right? He was very nice to ask me to come on his show, but I was like, number one, I'm not getting paid for this. Okay. Number two, I'm literally traveling across the country to do this. So like, how can I maximize this opportunity for the left, right? And the way to maximize it is to not to be insanely judgmental and combative toward his audience, but to really show his audience what we stand for, right? Who we really are and what we really want, what we see for the country. And I don't know, I think, I gotta say, the people from his audience who reached out to me afterward were incredibly receptive, incredibly kind. It was really shocking. And I'm really happy to see it. The
comments were all really, really positive.
Very positive. Yeah. And I was happy to see it.
Totally, right. And yeah, I think that getting people to like, I mean, just crassly, I absolutely want people to hate their neighbors and coworkers who vote differently less and the bosses more. Right. I mean, that's
Yep.
I mean, it really is as simple as that. I mean, if you read in like Current Affairs magazine did an interview with Justine Medina, I think, who was one of the organizers at the Amazon warehouse in Staten Island, and she mentioned that like one of the people who, like obviously the head of the union, Chris Smalls, is radical leftist black man, but like one of the organizers who actually signed up the most people in that campaign was this guy who was his nicknamed Uncle Pat, who's this Italian American Trump voter who just I probably wanted more time to be able to go to the bathroom and back, than like you get as an Amazon warehouse worker. And also I think was like outraged when he saw what they were doing to try to clamp down on the union. And it's like, yeah, I don't want yes, Trump is my enemy. Like Uncle Pat is not.
Right.
That's a pretty straightforward distinction. You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive postgames on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.